For someone who is still on the rise to major fame, Chappell Roan is never wanting of comment on its perils, trials, and tribulations. Most recently, in an interview with SZA, they were talking about the perils of fame together. And near the end of the conversation, SZA asked Chappell Roan if she gave an F about the backlash to her being a public figure. And this really touched a nerve with Chappell Roan, who is always eager to talk about how hard it is to be a celebrity. And I think this is what makes her so charming, especially to you, Brett. Like, she does kind of seem like someone who accidentally made it big. Like, she didn't expect her music career to take off, and now that it has, she realizes she didn't know what she was in for.
Well, I mean, she seems like the right aesthetic at the right time to me, but also like the way she behaves, if I was a record executive, would be the type of thing that I wouldn't necessarily want them complaining. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just don't understand how controversy works, but I wouldn't want the artist complaining about the perils of being famous. I get annoyed when they do that. Just the lady who's playing Lois Lane in the upcoming Superman movie was saying, like, she was like calling out other actors, like, you know, why do you do these superhero movies if then you get mad and like degrade them later if they don't do well? Like, own the stuff you make and be proud of it even if it doesn't do well. And I think that that's really good advice. But for celebrities, it's like when we talk about whatever struggles there are doing this job, it's not something to complain about, because to the average everyday person who gets up early and goes and does manual labor, goes to an office job, and they work hard each and every day, hearing about what we do in the sense of us complaining is the last thing any of them would want to hear, and it's the last thing any of us should actually be saying in a way like as if we were actually angry, because we don't have struggles comparatively.
We have a 20 from Pop Culture Junkie. I use ChatGPT for research, but occasionally have had a discussion about movies with it. My conclusions: it's built to keep you engaged, and it has the solicitous "what can I do for you" vibe that golden retrievers have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me that just creeps me out, so I'm still not someone who uses ChatGPT, and I'm certainly not willing to pay for it.
I use it pretty regularly. Like, usually in the context of like giving me lists.
I just need an aggregated list of like links to things that I need to find. But Chappell Roan's response to this question, I think, is really telling about how she views herself and how she views her work as an artist. She said, she didn't care about the backlash until people started hating me for me and not for my art. When it's not about my art anymore, it's like they hate me because I'm Kaylee, not because they hate the songs that I make. That's when it changed. So she's ironically saying that she takes it more to heart when people criticize her personality than what she puts out into the world as a self-expression.
Yeah.
Which I feel like just means you put more value on yourself than your music.
Yeah. I mean, that might be like the way that you're imagining it might be more true for somebody who isn't famous on such a grand scale, where it's like their art is a labor of love, not a profession. Therefore, they might take more to the criticism of their art if they're not making a living doing it. But if you're making a living doing it and you're making good money, but then you're also sharing your unsolicited opinions on what's going on in Iran, that might bother you more because you're sharing it for free.
Went on to say, when things are taken out of context, people assume so much about you. I didn't realize I'd care so much. When it comes to my art, I'm like, bitch, you can think whatever you want. You're allowed to hate it with all your guts. But when it comes to me and my personality, it's like, damn, am I the most insufferable bitch of our generation?
And that also doesn't work. That doesn't translate to what we do, because who we are is translated into how we share our thoughts. So she has the ability, the mainstream celebrity has the ability to be completely divested from the personality-wise from their art. For the most part, meaning that they could make their art, make their music, do their interviews, share quippy stories, but not really say a whole lot about what they believe in anything. Whereas like what we do, what we believe is kind of shared with by virtue of what we talk about and what our thoughts on it are. So she could be completely avoidant of everything she's going through, but none of them can help but share their opinions when they go into these interviews.
Well, I think this is what it means for a Gen Z woman to become famous in the age of social media, because People compare her often to Lady Gaga of Gen Z. Like, she's the Gen Z Lady Gaga. I think that she's not nearly as talented or interesting. But maybe I think that because if Lady Gaga had become famous in the 2020s instead of the late 2000s, we would know way too much about her, and it wouldn't be mysterious or interesting anymore.
That's what Michael B. Jordan was saying that Denzel Washington told him recently. He said, be on social media less. He's like, if you want people to come see you in the theaters on Saturday, they shouldn't have access to you Monday through Friday for free.
Like, I didn't know that it was an urban legend for years that Lady Gaga was trans. That was like an urban legend on the level of Marilyn Manson got his ribs removed. They said that she was trans.
Okay, not on that level.
There was no evidence for it, but she never even clarified to anyone whether or not she was trans, because she was just like, I don't know, if you want to think that I'm trans, like, go ahead and think that I'm trans. It doesn't matter. I just want you to listen to my music. But I think a Chappell Roan would never say something like that. And I think the backlash she's referring to is mostly to her take about the 2024 election and her saying that she wasn't going to vote for Kamala Harris because of the Democrat Party platform on Palestine. And also another video from 2024 when she said she doesn't owe her fans selfies or hugs. Those two videos were disastrous for her public image. But at the same time, I think that it kind of takes some courage to say that you're not going to vote for Kamala, even if you're not saying you're pro-Trump. She did get dragged for that beyond belief.
She tried to add a level of nuance there that her fans aren't capable of dealing with.
They're too dumb to even understand what she was trying to say. And again, for the idea that you don't owe your fans physical contact or selfies or whatever when you're just going about your day-to-day life, I agree, but you just need to be okay with the backlash that ensues.
The thing to do there is to 100% believe that, but not make any comment
and
about
stand
it
on
whatsoever.
business about it. And that reminds me,
because there is no good answer to that.
Gracie Abrams was just getting a bunch of hate from her fan base because people found out that she leaves all of the letters and gifts that are given to her by her fans at the venue every time that she has a concert. Like, all of these fans of hers are giving her, like, crocheted tote bags and, like, fan mail and toys and keychains and all this other crap.
She's like, I got stuff
and she's on the road. She doesn't have anywhere to put it. She's just gonna leave. She doesn't want to read all of your fan letters, okay? I completely understand that. I don't think she ever intended for her fans to find out that she doesn't bring those things along with her. Unlike Miley Cyrus, who says she has a storage unit of all of the gifts that fans have ever given her, which I don't even believe.
There's a friend of mine's band. They used to call the records that they would get from other bands that were like trying to make it, because you would make a CD and then you would give your CD to the touring band, hoping that the touring band would hear you and be like, oh, I dig you, and either put you in front of a label or something like that, right? He used to call he said, yeah, we'll take it and we'll put it in 50-mile-an-hour records, and 50-mile-an-hour records meant they started throwing them out the bus at 50 miles an hour. Yes.
Oh, no.
So when the bin got sufficiently full, 50-mile-an-hour records are just whipping them out the door.
But that's to be expected. And then there were people saying, like, no, like, what Gracie Abrams should have done is she should, like, take them and then privately discard them so that no one finds out. And at that point, it's like, okay, why do we even care about keeping up the illusion?
Well, yeah, and then you're like, the whole point of that is control, is to micromanage her and make her do things the way you think.
And the weird
appropriate.
parasocial shit, like, just people should know that their idols don't care about them. You should actually know that. And then Chappell Roan continued by saying, it hurt her when criticisms were sent to her. It makes me cry. I don't know if it will ever feel okay to hear someone say something really hateful about me.
Do you think that this is maybe more of an issue for women than men? Do you think men are better at discarding this? Do you think men are just as sensitive to these things?
Depends, but I mean, when you see MGK recording himself clapping back at someone who's making fun of his single.
I would imagine that both,
It's
you know, you're an artist.
Expressed as anger, but he is upset.
And you're already an artist, so maybe you're already more emotional than the average person. You have more access to your emotions,
Right.
and when those hateful comments come in, you just you don't read them.
But Phil, when it comes to criticism that's sent to you, would you feel more perturbed by it related to your actual music or about you as a person?
I kind of don't care either way.
So there's no
But-
difference to you.
Yeah, it for the most part I don't. There's not much that I concern myself with when it comes to like what like they. For the most part, they don't bother me. Every once in a while, I'll clap back and I'll say something, but I'm extremely active on Twitter, or on X.
You're just like desensitized at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah, you know, for the most part.
That's probably the more mentally healthy way
Yeah.
to
When
approach
people,
it.
I mean, when people are like, "Oh, blah blah blah," I mean, look, when they bring up All That Remains, like, All That Remains is an extremely successful band. Most bands don't even get into the arena that All That Remains is in. So it's like, well, you just don't like it, and it's like, or more to the point, maybe you're ambivalent about the music, but you're only using it as a vector to attack me.
True.
Thinking that I've never heard
True.
someone say, "Oh, your music sucks" before, you know. It's like, you know.
And I think
So-
that might be an issue that kind of comes to the same critique people have of celebrities when they say, like, what are they complaining about? They're rich, which is like your problems will shift with what your living situation is, with what your life is like. Meaning that and I've kind of noticed this in my own life because I've had to, like, you know, kind of face down a bunch of crap and then overcome it and then move on to the next thing. And it's like, you don't ever get to that point where everything's just fine. Like, you just find something else to have as a problem in life. You just kind of, so if you're a band or you're in media and people are complaining, you're like, well, you're upset because you think you should be bigger. Like, they're complaining, you're like, you don't ever get to the size of a platform maybe where you're like, well, I have this many people that watch me, why do I care? Like, for a lot of people, I don't think that matters because they take it personally. Like, doesn't matter if you have 100 followers or 1 million followers. If you are the type of person who pays close attention to what people are saying about your work, you're going to take it personally.
Yeah, I mean, but I also
If you're that
imagine-
type of person.
I imagine if you're that type of person, paying attention to, you know, what people say when you have 1 million followers has to be worse because
Yeah.
just the volume. Because if you have 1 million people that know you, and even if it's, you know, 10% that don't like something you do, 100,000 people ready to jump on the internet and tell you how much they're bummed, how you ruined their day, and they're probably going to unalive themselves or something like that, you know.
Our brains just are not built to process that.
No, not at all.
But I also want to know, from your perspective, how you feel about setting boundaries with fans. Like, do you feel the way that Chappell Roan feels, where, you know, I don't owe you a picture, I don't owe you a hug, or whatever it may be?
So,
Or like fan mail, that type of thing.
individually, you don't. So, like, if you get off the bus and you're like going to do something and there's a crowd there, it's perfectly fine to be like, hey, sorry, I don't have time, right? And just not stop and not talk. Like, there are going to be times where, you know, as an entertainer or whatever, you're going to have to be comfortable with saying, like, hey, I can't right now. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can't tell your fans, hey, I'm going to make time for you, and then not deliver on that because you made an agreement with them, right? So whether it be some kind of meet and greet or whether you've got some kind of appearance thing, you can't tell them, yeah, I'm going to make some time with you and then not show up, or show up and, like, a lot of times you hear stories about artists showing up and then being like, okay, I did the thing and I'm here and I'm out of here, right? Like, you have to, you can't just, like, shortchange them like that.
Yeah, in my perspective, the only thing you owe them is the thing they paid for.
Yes.
Anything that they're not paying for is, by definition, just not something that you owe them. They also mention Chappell Roan is known for setting boundaries with fans and calling out creepy behavior. I want to show this interview that she did with BBC News earlier this year about this subject.
All right, here we go.
She looks so unfortunate.
She's not doing herself
famous. Like, I very much was not famous until this year. So I understand like how nerve-wracking and how I don't want to bother you, but I'm going to come up and say how much I love you, because like I understand where people are coming from. I know they don't know how unsafe it makes me feel. And I know they don't know how embarrassed I am now that I'm famous, but they shouldn't be surprised if I say no to a photo. I did not grow up famous. Like I very much was.
All of the comments were like, she's always complaining about something. I've never seen someone work so hard to be famous and complain so much when it happens. The irony. She always gives off a mean girl vibe. And these people...
The clapback would be like, she's not a mean girl. She's setting boundaries.
Right. And then one of them says, so basically she doesn't want to see her fans unless they're paying her. Why is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
You know? Like, you're paying for her concert, you're paying for a meet and greet experience, you're paying her every time that you stream her songs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just one of those things that she should just not talk about it.
I mean, think about how annoying Chappell Roan fans are. I'm sure she's well aware of how annoying Chappell Roan fans are.
Have all those boundaries, believe everything you believe, and just don't address these issues, because there's no way you come out of this looking good.
No.
You just can't. It's a fact of your existence, and that's perfectly fine. But given the type of fan base that pop stars especially have to kind of cultivate, that you're never going to come out looking like the good guy in this.
It will not
even
serve
if you are.
you to be brutally honest.
You have to be comfortable with no comment.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.